initiative of a national figure, Commander Ismail Khan, the resolution of which greatly contributed in bringing about understandings on principles for a national consensus that are the basis of the current United Nations peace process. In this connection, this August Assembly is to be assured that the entire nation, except some small circles of warmongers, are eager to peace and consider the military confrontations and weapons unnecessary, destructive, and pointless. Secondly, the Islamic State, as previously stated, is deeply convinced that military means can neither score victory for any side nor solve the problems and issues with which we are confronted today. Unfortunately, it has been a faction of the opposition who, in violation of every agreement and accords, resorted to military option as means of attaining their goals. Thirdly, the capabilities the United Nations system offers for supporting a sustainable peace process in Afghanistan is adequate enough. In this connection, my delegation emphasizes on the necessity for other initiatives to be directed towards complementing the United Nations role. Fourthly, our people experienced long years of war, which have produced many social, economic, and psychological calamities. A large part of the country remained underdeveloped and destructed, in some cases beyond rehabilitation. Our present generation is denied of education, and I'm wondering, Mr. President, what phenomenon could be more pathetic to a nation other than depriving a complete generation of basic education? These requirements and needs can be adequately responded to only through an adequate international assistance. And fifthly, the United Nations system enjoys the capabilities to ensure an end to the interferences in our internal affairs. That is why we welcome the presidential statement of the Security Council dated 30th November 1994, which inter alia called upon all states to take the necessary steps to promote peace in Afghanistan and to prevent the continued flow of weapons, ammunition, and military supplies to the war in Afghanistan and to put an end to this destructive conflict. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, we have placed the supporting of the United Nations endeavors for Afghanistan at the highest of our national effort towards ending the conflict. We expect our friends to respect the will of our nation for peace and extend their same unreserved support. The special mission headed by Ambassador Mahmoud Misturi needs a continuous, solid, and sustained support of all those who are committed to the right of nations to life and to peace. Lack of a firm standing diminishes the efficiency of the United Nations, contribute to the further institutionalization of lawlessness in areas of conflict, and further encourages the warmongers to pursue their heinous goals. Now I should like to make some general observations with regard to the approach the United Nations is applying in its endeavors, as well as on the need for appropriate assurances and guarantees the United Nations should secure for a successful conduct of its mission. First, in any United Nations goodwill mission for the peaceful solution of problems around the world, based upon democratic values, respect for majority votes have always been regarded as a basic principle to be applied. Efforts for obtaining consensus and achieving a political solution to a crisis is a noble ideal. However, if due to the nature of a particular situation, especially the one its causes reaches beyond internal factors, the realization and achievement of consensus appear unattainable, and every attempts are exhausted, then the application of preponderant majority vote as a democratic principle and a deterrent against killing and destruction would be completely logical and plausible. This would be particularly true in a situation where one side continues to reject any compromise formula and violates the right of innocent civilian population to life and peace. In such a situation, Mr. President, emphasizing on majority vote should in no way be considered as tyranny of the majority or negligence of the right of the minority. Such an application would be for the good of the people, preventing further bloodshed and destruction, alleviating tragedies and sufferings. The reason we did not insist on the application of majority vote at this stage was to allow the United Nations mission with certain amount of flexibility. We hope the opposition, by taking advantage of consensus application, do not continue to veto any meaningful compromise formula for finding answers to issues on which the United Nations Special Mission will soon conduct negotiations. Second, the normal political process towards solving issues, especially those with roots tied beyond internal factors, can in any way be vulnerable. This requires the United Nations, while exercising vigilance, to foresee appropriate guarantee and precautionary measures towards securing the smooth conduct of different phases of the political process. The Islamic State of Afghanistan, in its part, would like to assure the United Nations that the Afghan people and the military forces in the country, in every phase of the process, especially at the phase of the transfer of power, would stand behind the United Nations by undertaking appropriate precautionary measures to avoid military sabotages and plots to avert the peace process. As far as the United Nations' role in this matter is concerned, we would like to see a strong commitment to stay solid until the whole peace process succeeds. We do not want to see Kabul turning into another Bihaj. Mr. President, I should like to briefly state the position of my delegation with regard to observations and recommendations of the report contained in paragraph 75 to 81, as reflected in the operative section of the draft resolution tabled today. The Islamic State of Afghanistan would be happy to discuss every dimension of the proposals and the recommendations of the special mission. Many issues may indeed be emerging in the implementation of the step-by-step political process, which shall have to be solved on the ground. The Islamic State of Afghanistan supports the phases referred to in paragraphs 2 and 3 of the operative part of the draft resolution pertaining to an immediate and durable ceasefire. It is even ready to support the assignment of a ceasefire monitoring group composed of both Afghans and international monitors. The Organization of Islamic Conference has already expressed its readiness to assist Afghanistan in this particular matter. Regarding the paragraph 2 of the draft resolution, the Islamic State of Afghanistan is in favor of establishment of an authoritative commission, which has been rightly defined in the draft resolution to be a broad-based. Therefore, the authoritative commission must not be deprived from such a nature. It must not be confined only to the representatives of the political parties. The Islamic State of Afghanistan firmly believes that 18 persons, 2 from each of the 9 parties, together with 10 independent Afghan personalities who do not belong to the parties, and also representatives of all provinces of Afghanistan, 2 delegates from each province elected by the provincial council, which exists in the provinces, must actively participate in the authoritative commission. Such a composition will allow all the segments of the people of Afghanistan to have a frank feeling of being participants in the task of the commission and of being involved in making decisions about their destiny. Concerning the representation of the parties who comprises the authoritative commission, let us take note that in the earlier meeting, including the one convened in Jalalabad last year, only 9 parties recognized during the 14 years of struggle participated. Recently, new claims have emerged demanding recognition of another group to be eligible for membership in the authoritative commission. The preponderant majority of the parties which participated last year in Jalalabad meeting do not, however, recognize the legality of such claims that would lead to a multiplication of such claims in the future as demanded by other groups and factions. The Islamic State of Afghanistan, guided by the views of the decisions of the preponderant majority, cannot bear the responsibility of accepting any increase in the number of the parties allowed to take part in the authoritative commission. Such an increase in the number of the parties can only be made in the light of the legislative text of the political parties, to be enacted by a future legislative body, specifying standards and criteria for accepting new political parties, including the procedure for such an acceptance. Mr. President, regarding the idea of establishing a national security force, as referred in subparagraph B of the operative section of the draft resolution, the Islamic State of Afghanistan would like the General Assembly to be aware of the practical difficulties involved in implementing this idea. We strongly believe that an order of priority for the step-by-step implementation of the peace process should be taken into consideration. The most urgent and key issue in the establishment of the authoritative commission, mentioned in paragraph 9 of the Secretary General's report and reflected in operative paragraph 2 of the draft resolution under consideration. The establishment of the provisional government should proceed as a second step. It is then when the question of the creation of national security force can be considered by the provisional government, approved by the authoritative commission. However, the authoritative commission, as a supreme executive body, would decide about the genuine neutral character of such a force. We wish to emphasize that such a force cannot be established ahead of the formation of the authoritative commission. For the sake of the record, we wish to emphasize that the chronological order of the peace process, as a task expected to be performed by the special mission in cooperation with the Islamic State of Afghanistan and other parties involved, must be observed. Afghanistan firmly believes in the necessity of the establishment of a transitional government, the task of which has been elaborated in the report and also in the draft resolution. As far as the duration of this transitional government is concerned, the Islamic State of Afghanistan will be flexible. Mr. President, to allow the political process to consolidate, President Rabbani, in a message read out before this General Assembly by Dr. Ghafoorzai, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, announced his readiness to transfer the power to a responsible and legitimate authority. The details of the views of the Islamic State regarding the peace process is to be found in a declaration dated November 1st, 1994, published as Security Council document S/1277 of November 11, 1994. Mr. President, a strong desire on the part of the majority of the forces and parties in Afghanistan leads us to be optimistic about Ambassador Mistiri's forthcoming negotiations inside Afghanistan towards the implementation of the renewed mandate he'll be receiving by the unanimous adoption of the draft resolution under consideration. Mr. President, turning to the reconstruction efforts. It is a matter of satisfaction to my delegation to see that the progressive report of 1st July, as well as the current report of the Secretary General, both emphasize on the existence of a consensus that a major international effort to assist in the reconstruction of Afghanistan, as integral